What's good? What's good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of The Urban Platform Speaks. Make sure to like and subscribe as you tune into the channel, check out the content. And with that being said, man, I want to speak on a recent episode of the Jason Whitlock show where they were talking about ESPN and how ESPN might be in a position, they're in a right position for for the downfall of the channel. It's because of YouTube and Amazon and Netflix, all these other streaming services, these different platforms might be in a position to overtake ESPN as the leader in sports, right? And so, this is an interesting discussion. I always thought that I was of the mindset that ESPN is going to lose like some of their viewership because they're, in my opinion, they're not always honest with the public, and they always seem like they trying to promote an agenda. Whereas though, if you turn into to independent people who are talking about sports, like they don't usually, in most cases, don't have an agenda. Like a lot of times, people don't have sponsors, so they really just talking about like how they feel about a certain sport, how they feel about a certain player, and they are speaking from a fan's perspective. Now, granted, they don't. Also, we don't have like the inside information, right? But a lot of times we don't really need the inside information because we can kind of, because we have been watching sports for so long, we could kind of get the gist of what's going on even behind the scenes without even being behind the scenes. Just be, So with that being said, I want to play what Jason Whitlock and his panel was discussing about ESPN and how ESPN is in danger of maybe falling to some of these streaming services.
in in all of this. And as
Wait
I
a minute,
sit
hold
here and
on.
listen,
options. Now, think about this for a moment. You have the Packers and the Eagles playing on Monday night, and anyone who has YouTube cannot watch it as we sit here today. Imagine that. And people are the forced discipline. I agree, Steve, that they are finding other options and ways to do it. YouTube is a huge part of my life. It's every single day. I couldn't function without YouTube. I can function without ESPN. And here's one thing, guys, I don't think a lot of people are realizing, and I've been on this and been studying this now for probably about a year and a half. I believe ESPN is very vulnerable right now, and it's the worst time for this to happen because I think Netflix and Amazon are in a position to make the ultimate power play over the next, say, 2 to 5 years. They've already started to dabble into the games. They already have the leagues with them to some varying degree. And as it relates to sports gambling, as it relates to platform quality, all of that, I believe guys like Pataro see this. And I think there's a takedown about ready to happen. And I'm in line to watch it.
Wow. Okay, so this guy, and that's the guy with the glasses on. He to my far left, right? And so he's saying that ESPN is going to get, they're in a position where they could get taken down by like these other streaming services, and where else you could get YouTube being one, Amazon, and also Netflix being another one, right? So that is very interesting, right? And like I said, I think part of the reason why is because people don't really find ESPN to be above board and really honest with people, and so when you get that grassroots type conversation that you can get off of YouTube, or because you're turning into people who, like I said, just basically giving their opinion on the sport without trying to promote a certain narrative, then you feel like you're getting something more out of the conversation.
takedown of who? ESPN?
ESPN, ESPN, and the benefactors of this. And it's almost like you continue to punch yourself in your own face, is what ESPN is doing. They cannot not realize what they're doing, can they? I mean, do you not have the pulse of the public? When have you, any of us, ever heard anybody in the last 10 years say anything positive about ESPN? And I think Netflix and Amazon are ready to pounce. This is a gift.
I think that ESPN could be drunk on its success. ESPN has always had an overinflated sense of itself, particularly the on-air talent, because ESPN had such a monopoly on sports coverage that anybody you put on there was going to have the feeling of having a following. And they really don't. That's why I sound like some people think I'm jealous of Stephen A. Smith or all that. I don't think Stephen A. Smith has a sincere following.
Okay, so right there, right? First, I want to talk about what he said about monopolies, right? If ESPN feel like they have a monopoly, then that gives them the confidence to say, well, all right, well, whatever we put on there, whatever we put on air, you just gonna have to buy into it. You don't have anywhere else to go for your sports information. Then it is what it is. Y'all just deal with it, or you not even watch. And sometimes when you listen to mainly Stephen A. Smith, he has that attitude too, that arrogance and that false sense of confidence, where as though if I say it, it must be true. If you disagree, you don't know what you're talking about. So, and that's what people, in my opinion, are like rejecting when it comes to ESPN. And like the first guy said, I don't even like a lot of people don't even really watch ESPN, right? And that's why you'll see like ESPN now, in my opinion, they're like getting more into like the controversy and like different. Like I just heard Stephen A. Smith going at the young lady Michelle Beadle, right? They're doing that kind of stuff, like a sports commentator is doing those kind of things for to draw attention. When if they were just honest and upfront and above board as far as the sports commentating, they wouldn't have to resort to those type of measures.
I think he's been forced down our throats on ESPN, but no one thinks Stephen A. Smith is talented. No one thinks he's that informed or that insightful about sports. And ESPN has like, hey, because we fooled everybody into thinking Stephen A. is this great gift to sports, it gives them a confidence of that, hey, we can make whoever we want into a star, into a king. And it's kind of reflective of the whole mentality of Hollywood and the leftist deal. Is like, if they decide this person's important, if they want to put Joe Biden in as president, even though he's half dead, if they decide, hey, no one likes Hillary Clinton, but we're going to run her for president, she's going to be president. And Trump has been the monkey wrench, to use a word from SCAP, in all of this. And as I sit here and listen to Paul's take, Steve, I want to throw this back to you.
Yeah.
He points to the Trump effect. And I think the Trump effect, in combination with Colin Kaepernick, those two things, 2016, 2000, with Kaepernick, and Trump starts in 2015 and 16, those two things in working in combination, I do perhaps that is.
Yeah, I don't really see like the Trump effect. Probably because I don't really pay too much attention to politics, but I don't see where Donald Trump, comes into play here. Nor do I see like with Colin Kaepernick. Like I said, I think ESPN has been like on this because they pretty much monopolize, like sports talk television. That's what, that's what gave them the confidence to say, no matter who we put on TV, they're going to be successful. No matter what we tell our audience, they're going to have to either buy it or, they don't have any any other outlets. But YouTube has changed that. And you have, like I said, you got people on YouTube who are getting some pretty good followings because they honest, and they, it's just like having a barbershop conversation without, people trying to promote certain narratives, right? So the Donald Trump thing and the Colin Kaepernick thing, I'm not really too much into that or buying into that too much.
The turning point.
Well, look, so Kaepernick was 2016, and then Trump was the president at that stage all the way till his first run ended in about 2020, really January 2021. So yeah, that era marked something, and there's no doubt Donald Trump is a lightning rod to everybody and everything and anything, no matter what you think about him. But I think we're right on the 1 year anniversary of the election last year where people said we'd rather have Trump. We tried it the other way. And I think the nation, or at least part of it, collectively turned the page and said, you know what? We're not going to even pretend to agree with you guys. We've done enough pandering. We've done enough outright lying. We'd rather go back to actually liking America and not hating ourselves. And I think ESPN, with that, lost a large portion of their viewership, or a good number of it, with their pandering, specifically to the right. And by the way, the right, they like sports too. But I want to piggyback up one of the guys said about what do we really watch on ESPN in terms of programming or the daily shows. Here's what I find interesting. Inside the NBA is still incredibly good. And you know why, guys? They didn't change it. I've actually watched it a few times. It looks basically like it did on TNT because it wasn't broke, so they did not fix it. But what does it tell you? That maybe their best ensemble cast and talk show is something they did not create. They're just hosting it. That has nothing to do with that is still to me a TNT entity, in my view. It's just on ESPN. Also, their strongest personality is a guy in Pat McAfee who right now could ditch ESPN this minute and go right back to YouTube, would not lose an ounce of popularity.
And so let me stop it right there, right?
Follow.
And that's what makes Pat McAfee, because Pat McAfee is a guy who just says, he's just a real guy who says what he think and what he feels. He don't seem like he coming on with an agenda. And so that's what people relate to. But and also with the TNT, when you got Shaq, Kenny, Charles Barkley, and the other guy, you know, those guys are the same way. They just giving their honest take on sports for the most part. You know what they feel about it. Ernie, Shaq, Kenny Anderson, and Charles Barkley, they just giving their honest take on sports. And so you don't have people like Stephen A. Smith, you know, talking all loud and saying all this other stuff that most people, you know, don't agree with. And he always bragging about how his show is number one when they don't have any competition. It's easy to be number one when you have a monopoly on something, right? You know, but they want to leave that part out. So now that you have YouTube and people are tuning into YouTube and these other platforms and exchanging ideas and stuff about sports on these other platforms, I agree with these guys. I do think that ESPN has lost a big segment of their following. And you can see ESPN got rid of Shannon Sharp. And Shannon Sharp still have Nightcap and he still has Club Shay Shay. Now that money that he was going to get from ESPN, I mean, he's missing that, but he's still in good position. Just like what the guy said, like if Pat McAfee was to leave ESPN, he'll be fine. He was fine before ESPN and he'll be fine after ESPN. So that's why he know that he can do and say what he want on there. He don't have to compromise. Stephen A. Smith is not in a position where, or he choose not to be in a position where he don't have to compromise. He rather, wake up first thing in the morning and say, forget his integrity. He worried about his first thoughts is how he can make his boss some money. So let me let these guys finish up.
Follow up, and this may be out of order in terms, I probably shouldn't, but it just came to my head. It seems like Fox Sports should benefit from the collapse of ESPN. But Fox Sports, from its inception in 2015-16 with Jamie Horowitz, all they wanted to be was ESPN. And that's what used to drive me crazy when I was there, that there, again, as Paul points out, it's like Amazon and YouTube or Netflix, they're actually going to capitalize on this. And Fox Sports is just ESPN light.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to it. So ESPN, I believe, first aired in 1979. So you're talking about a network, Jason, that had a 35, 36-year head start. That's hard to overcome. And ESPN is one of those brands, even now, you think of Coca-Cola, Apple. I mean, it's not just ubiquitous. It is everything. You talk to people in foreign countries and you say those four letters, they'll know what you're talking about. I think that.
All right. So basically, and so I want to talk about what Jason Whitlock said about Fox, right? Fox has always been, they've been chasing ESPN, but it just amazes me too, just like it did Jason Whitlock, like how Fox you to try to beat ESPN by emulating ESPN would not have worked. And I'm just amazed at how those big companies, like how they think, the way they think, And so now I think YouTube is a threat to ESPN and these other streaming services because everything is going to be more fractured. I think ESPN is handing out and doling out all this big money to people like Stephen A. Smith. They gave a lot of money to Pat McAfee and some other people that got big money. I think the ESPN is in danger of also pricing itself out of the market because their numbers won't be able to support the salaries that they're giving out, right? And so that's my take on this situation with with Jason Whitlock and his co-host. Let me know what you think. Do you think the ESPN is in danger of, if they're in danger of falling, to these streaming networks? Do you think that's a good thing? And so with that being said, man, y'all make sure to like and subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment, and I'll check you all out in the next video. Peace.